तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नित्यामने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री द्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. Yes, so we are now studying onwards from hmm, Ramananda, right? Okay, yeah, we were discussing this topic. Hmm. 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 Yeah, we've done this. Hmm. Okay. At the conclusion of this meeting, Ramananda Rai was advised by the Lord to retire from service and come to Puri so that he could live together and relish a transcendental relationship. Sometime later, Sri Ramananda Rai retired from the government service and took a pension from the king. He returned to his residence in Puri, where he was one of the most confidential devotees of the Lord. There was another gentleman at Puri of the name Shikhi Mahiti, actually. This is Shikhi Mahiti, who was also a confidant like Ramananda Rai.
I think this
The
one.
Lord used to hold confidential talks on spiritual values with 3 or 4 companions at Puri, and he passed 18 years in that way, in spiritual trance. His talks were recorded by his private secretary, Sri Damodar Goswami, one of the 4 most intimate devotees. So Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita was actually written down by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. And Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was actually a contemporary of around Jiva Goswami. So he was after the time of Rupa and Sanatan Goswami. So he took the assistance of Jiva Goswami and Sarup Damodar Goswami's writings to compile this great literature. The Lord extensively traveled all over the southern part of India. The great saint of Maharashtra, known as Saint Tukaram, was also initiated by the Lord. Saint Tukaram, after initiation by the Lord, overflooded the whole of Maharashtra province with the Sankirtan movement, and the transcendental flow is still rolling in the southwestern part of Great Indian Peninsula. The Lord excavated from South India 2 very important literatures, namely the Brahma Samhita and Krishna Karnamrit. And these 2 valuable books are authorized studies for a person in the devotional line. The Lord then returned to Puri after his South Indian tour. On his return to Puri, all the anxious devotees of the Lord got back their life, and the Lord remained there with continued pastimes of his transcendental realizations. The most important incidents during that time was his granting audience to King Prataparudra. King Prataparudra was a great devotee of the Lord, and he considered himself to be one of the servants of the Lord entrusted with sweeping the temple. This submissive attitude of the king was very much appreciated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The king requested both Bhattacharya and Rai to arrange his meeting with the Lord. When, however, the Lord was petitioned by his 2 stalwart devotees, he flatly refused to grant the request, even though it was put forward by personal associates like Ramananda Rai and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. The Lord maintained that it was dangerous for a sannyasi to be in intimate touch with worldly money conscious men and with women. The Lord was an ideal sannyasi. No woman could approach the Lord even to offer respects. Women's seats were accommodated far away from the Lord. As an ideal teacher and acharya, he was very strict in the routine work of a sannyasi. Apart from being a divine incarnation, the Lord was an ideal character as a human being. His behavior with other persons was also above suspicion. In his dealings as acharya, he was harder than the thunderbolt and softer than the rose. One of his associates, Junior Haridas, committed a great mistake by lustfully glancing at a young woman, and the Lord, as Supersoul, could detect this just in the mind of Junior Haridas. He was at once banished from his association and was never accepted again, even though he was implored to excuse Haridas for the mistake. Junior Haridas afterwards committed suicide due to being dissociated from the company of the Lord, and the news of suicide was duly related to the Lord. Even at that time, the Lord was not forgetful of the offense, and he said that Haridas had rightly met with the proper punishment. On the principles of the renounced order of life and discipline, the Lord knew no compromise. And therefore, even though he knew that the king was a great devotee, he refused to see the king only because the king was a dollar and cent man. By this example, the Lord wanted to emphasize the proper behavior for a transcendentalist. A transcendentalist has nothing to do with money and with women and money. He must always refrain from such intimate relations. The king was, however, favored by the Lord by the expert arrangement of the devotees. This means that the beloved devotee of the Lord can favor a neophyte more liberally than the Lord. Pure devotees, therefore, never commit an offense at the feet of another pure devotee. An offense at the lotus feet of the Lord is sometimes excused by the merciful Lord, but an offense at the feet of a devotee is very dangerous for one who actually wants to make progress in devotional service. So, two pastimes are mentioned here. One is the pastime of Chota Haridas or Junior Haridas, and the first one is the pastime of Maharaj Prataparudra. So, King Prataparudra was the king of Odisha, and he used to engage in fights with Nawab Hussain Shah of Bengal. So, Bengal province and Odisha province were separate in those days, and they often had wars. So, this Maharaj Prataparudra was a great devotee of Jagannath. And when he came to know about Mahaprabhu, he was a great devotee of Mahaprabhu also. But Mahaprabhu would not meet him. Now, this is a very proper behavior. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says in Chaitanya Charitamrita, um, because we are discussing the character of an ideal Bhagavad, so we are discussing all these topics. Now, today, of course, it is considered fashionable, in the name of being modern, that all of this is some kind of orthodoxy or some kind of chauvinism. But this is the spiritual standard. So Mahaprabhu says, असत संग त्यागा एई वैष्णव आचार स्त्री संगी एक असाधु कृष्ण भक्त आर. So asat sanga tyaga एई वैष्णव आचार. So asat sanga, what is asat? Asat means that association which is not transcendental. Asat, all kinds of materialistic association. People who are interested in mundane subject matters, mundane people. Dollar and cent men, the men who only talk about politics, economics, sports, and other nonsense. A devotee has nothing to do with all of this. So asat sanga tyaga ei Vaishnavachar. This is the standard of a Vaishnav. This is the character of a Vaishnav. Asat sanga tyaga. He doesn't associate with the worldly minded. Stri sangi eka asadhu Krishna bhakta ara. So what are the types of mundane associations? Stri sangi. So this is named first. Stri sangi means one who relishes the association of opposite sex. One may be a debauchee, or one may be simply a mundane man. Hey, I enjoy listening to women. I love talking to them. Stri Sangi. That's because Pumshama Striya Mithuni Bhava Metam. This whole material world is based on the attraction between the male and the female. So this kind of attachment is actually the grossest of material attachments. A man's attraction to a woman or a woman's attraction to a man is actually the basis of entire material life, and not just human beings. It afflicts great demigods like Brahma and Shiva also, down to the very insignificant creatures. So, such association is not at all conducive for spiritual advancement. When Srila Prabhupada was living in Vrindavan, actually, he had already become a Vanprastha. At that time, Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Swami, Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Swami was a friend of Srila Prabhupada. So he spoke with Srila Prabhupada, and he told him, he said, Bhakti Vedanta Prabhu, Prabhupada was a grahastha, a vanprastha at that time. He said, Bhaktivedanta Prabhu, no one can preach without taking sannyas. So if you really want to preach this mission of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, you please take sannyas. And Prabhupada did not, Prabhupada thought of that, but he didn't take sannyas immediately. But when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur appeared in his dream, he then took sannyas. So twice he appeared, and second time when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur appeared in his dream, Srila Prabhupada took sannyas. So, of course, we are not imploring that you take sannyas, but what we are saying is that at least become free from this unwanted attachment. Krishna Bhakta Ara and normal mundane men. These are all asat sangha. So it's not at all conducive for a devotee, even in the name of devotional service, to go and associate with such sinful people. Actually, the standard is like this. We may hear so many times that we have to collect donations, we have to collect funds and all that. So that's all good, that's all important. But we have to also understand what is the philosophy behind collecting funds. Brahmanas do madhukari. Sannyasis, Brahmanas, they do madhukari. Madhukari means begging. And how do they beg? The standard is like this, that a sannyasi collects no more than what he can contain in his two palms. He does not remain in a place for more than it takes to milk a cow. He does not stay in one place for more than 3 days. So this is the standard of madhukari. So sannyasi and especially this madhukari is done from the homes of brahmanas. It is never collected. I mean, devotees are renunciates. I mean, when we establish temples, brahmachari, sannyasis, they're renunciates. So renunciates collect donations from the brahmana class, the brahmanical class. Donations are never accepted from lower class people. A sannyasi will not enter the house of a shudra or a vaishya or even a kshatriya. They'll collect madhukari only from brahmanas. And brahmanas themselves are poverty stricken. So what can they give? So that is the standard of accepting donations. In the modern age, we have to accept from anyone because the whole world is Shudra. So, how do we reconcile? So, it's very simple. According to scriptures, whenever we accept as a gift or a donation something from somebody, we are accepting their karma. So, if we take Madhukari from some very demonic people, like businessmen and all who are demonic, then we should use the entire funds for the service of Vaishnavas and Krishna. Because if we accept funds and we take even a cent of that fund for our own gratification, we'll become afflicted with the sinful reaction. One must meditate very carefully on this. In this regard, there's a story of the devotees of Lord Madan Mohan in Vrindavan. So once a prostitute made a huge offering to the deity of Madan Mohan, and all the devotees they took that as prasad. And later on, they all suffered from very strange dreams. So we can understand that, that one should be very careful when one is accepting any kind of hospitality from anyone. So therefore, it is best that sannyasis stay away from the materialistic people as much as possible. And a sannyasi should never even hear the name of a woman. Because a sannyasi, I mean, this is the warning given by Srila Jagadanand Pandit in Prema Vivat. He says that a renunciate who's even remotely attached to women simply enjoys their cooking, simply enjoys talking to them, simply enjoys looking at them, will be completely rejected by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So when one has taken the possession of a sannyasi, one is forbidden to even think of women. That's the mood. Otherwise, one will be rejected from the association of Lord Chaitanya's associates. So therefore, Lord Chaitanya expelled Shri Chota Haridas from his association. So now this is a very interesting story because later on Mahaprabhu accepted Maharaj Prataparudra. And the story goes like this, that Prataparudra wanted to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but Mahaprabhu would not allow him. So what devotees suggested was that he should dress up like a sweeper and clean the paths of the chariot of Jagannath. And he did that. When Mahaprabhu saw his excellent service, Mahaprabhu was overwhelmed with ecstasy and embraced him. And it was only later on revealed that he is the king himself. So we can see that even though he was such a high standard devotee, Mahaprabhu avoided his association simply on the basis of his external position. Of course, Mahaprabhu is Paramatma, he knew the truth, but still to establish an etiquette so that in the days to come, his followers should not become debauchees and associate with such kind of materialistic people. And especially for a sannyasi to meet a politician is very dangerous. Hare Krishna. Yes, any questions or comments? Okay. Let me continue. As long as the Lord remained at Puri, thousands of his devotees used to come and see him during the Rath Yatra car festival of Lord Jagannath. And during the car festival, the washing of the Gundicha temple under the direct supervision of the Lord was an important function. The Lord's congregational Sankirtan movement at Puri was a unique exhibition for the mass of people. That is the way to turn the mass mind towards spiritual realization. The Lord inaugurated this system of mass Sankirtan, and leaders of all countries can take advantage of this spiritual movement in order to keep the mass of people in a pure state of peace and friendship with one another. This is now the demand of the present human society all over the world. So Mahaprabhu actually started, he actually mass organized his Sankirtan in Jagannath Puri. And the pivot of this Sankirtan was always the Jagannath Puri, the Jagannath Rath Yatra. And Mahaprabhu and his devotees would personally organize all these festivities. So the festival of Jagannath Rath Yatra is like this, that the Lord leaves Jagannath Puri. Jagannath Puri is compared to Dwarka, and there is a temple about a couple of kilometers down the road, which is called Gundicha. Gundicha is considered equivalent to Vrindavan. So once a year in the summertime, which is usually the rainy season in India, the Lord leaves Jagannath Puri and goes to Vrindavan in Gundicha, and he's taken in these carts along with Balram and Subhadra. They travel in tremendously large carts, and this temple is abandoned. It's not usually There's no worship carried out in this temple throughout the year. When the Lord is about to come, at that time the temple is opened and it is cleaned completely. So this Gundicha cleaning was done by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's an exemplary exhibition of how devotion service should be carried out. So Mahaprabhu and his devotees would carry hundreds of pots of water to wash each and every corner. And it is here that Lord Chaitanya actually gave this instruction that if one wants to purify one's heart, one should clean the temple of the Lord. The more one cleanses the temple of the Lord, the more the anarthas or the unwanted desires of the heart will be also washed away. So this is a beautiful pastime. It comes in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela. So someday we'll study that also. Hmm. After some time, the Lord again started on his tour towards northern India, and he decided to visit Vrindavan and its neighboring places. He passed through the jungles of Jharkhand, Madhya Bharat, and all the wild animals also joined his Sankirtan movement. The wild tigers, elephants, bears, and deer all together accompanied the Lord, and the Lord accompanied them in Sankirtan. Thus, he proved that by propagation of the Sankirtan movement, congregational chanting and glorifying the name of the Lord, even the wild animals can live in peace and friendship, and what to speak of men who are supposed to be civilized. No man in the world will refuse to join the Sankirtan movement. Nor is the Lord's Sankirtan movement restricted to any caste, creed, color, or species. Here is direct evidence of his great mission. He allowed even the wild animals to partake in his great movement. On his way back from Vrindavan, he first came to Prayag, where he met Rupa Goswami along with his younger brother Anupam. Then he came down to Banaras. For 2 months, he instructed Sri Sanatan Goswami in the transcendental science. The instruction to Sanatan Goswami is in itself a long narration, and full presentation of the instruction will not be possible here. The main ideas are given as follows. Sanatan Goswami, formerly known as Dabir Khas, actually it should be Sakar Malik here. Hmm. Yeah, was in cabinet service of Bengal government under the regime of Nawab Hussain Shah. He decided to join the Lord and thus retired from the service. On his way back from Vrindavan, when he reached Varanasi, the Lord became the guest of Sri Tapan Mishra and Chandrasekhar, assisted by a Maharashtra Brahman. At that time, Varanasi was headed by a great sannyasi of the Mayavad school named Shripad Prakashananda Saraswati. When the Lord was at Varanasi, the people in general became more attracted to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on account of his mass Sankirtan movement. Wherever he visited, especially the Vishwanath temple, thousands of pilgrims would follow him. Some were attracted by his bodily features, and others were attracted by his melodious songs glorifying the Lord. The Mayavadi sannyasis designate themselves as Narayan. Varanasi is still overflooded with many Mayavadi sannyasis. Some people who saw the Lord in his Sankirtan party considered him to be actually Narayan, and this report reached the camp of the great sannyasi Prakashanand. In India, there is always a kind of spiritual rivalry between the Mayavad and Bhagavad schools, and thus when the news of the Lord reached Prakashanand, he knew that the Lord was a Vaishnava sannyasi and therefore he minimized the value of the Lord before those who brought him the news. He deprecated the activities of the Lord because of his preaching the Sankirtan movement, which was, in his opinion, nothing but religious sentiment. Prakashanand was a profound student of the Vedanta, and he advised his followers to give attention to the Vedanta and not to indulge in Sankirtan. One devotee Brahmana, who became a devotee of the Lord, did not like the criticism of Prakashanand, and he went to the Lord to express his regrets. He told the Lord, when he uttered the Lord's name before the sannyasi Prakashanand, the latter strongly criticized him, although he heard him uttering several times the name Chaitanya. The Brahmana was astonished to see that sannyasi Prakashanand could not vibrate the sound Krishna even once, even although he uttered the name Chaitanya several times. The Lord smilingly explained to the devotee Brahmana why the Mayavadi cannot utter the holy name of Krishna. The Mayavadis are offenders at the lotus feet of Krishna, although they utter always Brahman, Atma, or Chaitanya, etc. And because they are offenders at the Lord, at the lotus feet of Krishna, they are actually unable to utter the holy name of Krishna. The name Krishna and the personality of Godhead Krishna are identical. There is no difference in the absolute realm between the name, form, or person of the absolute truth. Because in the absolute realm, everything is transcendental bliss. There is no difference between the body and the soul of the personality of Godhead Krishna. Thus, he is different from the living entity, who is always different from the outward body, from his outward body. Because of Krishna's transcendental position, it is very difficult for a layman to actually know the personality of Godhead Krishna, his holy name and fame, etc. His fame, form, and pastimes are all one and the same transcendental identity, and they are not knowable by the exercise of the material senses. The transcendental relationship of the pastimes of the Lord is the source of still more bliss than one can experience by realization of Brahman or by becoming one with the Supreme. Had it not been so, then those who are already situated in the transcendental bliss of Brahman would not have been attracted by the transcendental bliss of the pastimes of the Lord. After this, a great meeting was arranged by the devotees of the Lord to celebrate the birth of the Lord.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Invited, including the Lord and Prakasha of the Sankirtan movement, and a summary is given below. So this is a very important point that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu refuted the Mayavad philosophy. Now today, of course, it is very popular amongst the devotees from Indian subcontinent to call themselves Hindus. Oh, we are Hindus. But no, actually, Srila Prabhupada explains this. The so-called word Hindu actually comes from the Persian word Sindhu. And not only that, the general masses of Hindus are impersonalists. The whole Hindu philosophy is based on the Purusharth, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. This moksha implies liberation from material entanglement. But this moksha generally means merging into the Supreme, which is completely rejected by the strict Vaishnava philosophers. So, no, so Vaishnavas in that sense are not Hindus. Vaishnavas are beyond. And Mahaprabhu gives a very strict warning. Mayavada bhashya sunile haibe sarvanash. So if one goes to hear such impersonal thoughts of the Hindus, one's devotional service will be ruined. So haibe sarvanash, because one will become an impersonalist. The impersonal philosophy means Brahman Satya Jagan Mithya, that Brahma is the truth and the material world is actually an illusion. And that actually the ultimate truth is the Supreme Lord, and one becomes the Supreme Lord. One merges into the Supreme with the loss of his personal identity. That is not the goal of Vedas. The Vedas do not talk such philosophy. Adi Shankara has simply described Brahman Satya Jagan Mithya. The Mayavadis have perverted this philosophy to indicate that the living entity himself is Narayan. So that is not the truth. So this, what we call today as Hinduism, is actually a perversion of the original Vedic philosophy. In Vedic philosophy, we have three forms of the Lord. Vadanti tattattva vidas tattvam yad jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagwan iti shabdyate. So brahmeti paramatmeti bhagwan iti shabdyate. So there is Paramatma, which is there is Brahman, which is the absolute impersonal truth, the manifestation of the entire energy. Beyond that is Paramatma, the reflection of the Supreme within the heart. And then the origin of it all is Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. So different types of philosophers like Lokayatik, Vaibhashik, or Sankhya, or different types of philosophers attain different stages of realization. So these are progressions in the spiritual path, but the ultimate realization is the love of Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam Prema Pumartho Mahan. Even in this insignificant material life which we have, in this physical body, we crave for love. Even Arjun is lamenting that all this material wealth will have no meaning if all the people I love are annihilated. So certainly love is the highest principle. No one enjoys money, no one enjoys beauty, no one enjoys fame or power unless it is shared with someone. So that love is the highest principle. But what is this origin of love? This is the personality of Godhead. Prema Pumartho Mahan. Love of Godhead is the highest principle because the love of God includes all the subordinate forms of love that we see within this material world. And that is the contention, chief contention of the Vaishnava philosophy. That yes, so when you do attain the love of God, the realization of Paramatma and Brahman is automatically achieved. In fact, there is no even need for such things. A devotee, a pure devotee of the Lord who has realized this love, has no need for such insignificant realizations, which actually only serve to harden our heart. Impersonalist realizations like Paramatma, Brahman. Paramatma is still semi personal, but Brahman realization actually hardens the heart. So we can see sages, even though they are so highly elevated, they are always ready to curse anyone because the love of Godhead has not been fully realized within the heart, which is the real goal of all the Vedic studies. Vedashcha sarver aham eva vedya. Krishna is saying, of all the Vedas, I am to be known. So this is the importance of understanding what Bhagavatam is actually talking about. So this is the person Bhagavat, Lord Chaitanya, who is indicating with his own activities that love of Godhead is the actual topmost spiritual principle. Because even an impersonalist, when he attains Brahman, as soon as his heart longs for love, he will have to fall down to material plane because he has not attained the love of God. He has not re-established that relationship. Therefore, Mahaprabhu taught this mission of Sankirtan to develop that love. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunai Shamanadi Shuddha Chitte Karaye Uday. So the love of God, Nitya Siddha, is always present. Nitya Siddha, it is always achieved by the living entity. It is within the heart of every living entity. Sadhya Kabunai, it is not something to be attained. It is within the heart. Shamanadi Shuddha Chitte Karaye Uday. When we hear and we chant, then gradually the heart is purified and this love manifests. So certainly a devotee of the Lord cannot ignore this world. An impersonalist may think this whole world is an illusion, but a devotee of the Lord actually loves this world because he understands that this is an expansion of Krishna, his beloved Krishna. So in such a consciousness, the devotee of the Lord is actually capable of infinite love for everybody in this world. Therefore, when a Vaishnava takes sannyas, he does not leave behind a family, he actually acquires the whole world as a family. He lives completely under the shelter of the Lord. And this was the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which he taught in Banaras. Okay, so I think our time is up. Anyone has any questions or comments? Okay, then we stop here today. Thank you very much, everyone. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, all the devotees.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, Dandavad Pranam.
Dandavat
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam.